It's Ash from SuperVideos back for another video for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at whether the Outbreak flashback that we saw in the second episode of the Daryl Dixon spinoff is our best Outbreak flashback in the entire Walking Dead universe. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's dive right into it. So, of course, a lot of people have been bringing this up and saying that this is probably some of the best Outbreak flashbacks that we've seen in the Walking Dead universe. What are my thoughts on that? I have mixed feelings. I think it was pretty solid. There were some gaps, there were some missed opportunities, but when it comes to whether it was the best, I don't think it was. I feel like there were some things that they didn't do which made it just as good as some of the other things that we've seen in the universe. Let me explain. Of course, we started with Isabel right before the outbreak, basically a few hours before the walkers attacked. And I absolutely loved that, seeing the ordinary life of a person before the outbreak, before the fall. I thought that was great. And what obviously also added layers to the story was that we were in a brand new environment in a city like Paris. So all of that just made that initial encounter a little better than what we've seen in the past. Now, obviously, they didn't utilize Paris itself quite as much. We were basically in one street and in the subways in Paris. So they didn't really utilize some of the iconic locations in Paris, like the Eiffel Tower or anything like that, which I feel would have added more layers and complexities, and it would have made it more intriguing and interesting. But let's factor that out. I feel like everything leading up to Isabel's first encounter was pretty solid. I mean, if we're going to compare it, we can't really compare it to the original Walking Dead because we never had anything like this. The closest thing we got to something like this was in Fear the Walking Dead, where we actually saw the fall of Los Angeles. Now, let's just take a moment here. I feel like what Fear the Walking Dead did way better than The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon when it comes to setting up the outbreak and showing us the fall was showing weeks leading up to the fall and slowly giving us these small things that lead to a bigger reveal later on. So it was a slow burn in Fear the Walking Dead, and I feel like that was a lot better done. I feel like what they did on the Daryl Dixon was rushed, and I feel like they could have polished it a little bit more, added a bit more to it, and let some of the scenes breathe in order to let that setup have the impact that it needs to have. But then we get to where Isabel goes to the train station. I absolutely love that. I feel like this is something that we never really got anywhere in the Walking Dead universe, like seeing a close encounter like that in a closed environment like a train car. So this was definitely pretty well done, and the way that it came together, seeing Isabel's shocked face, all of it added to the intrigue and the awesomeness of the scene. And obviously the train passing by with the zombies attacking was fantastic. It reminded me a lot of both Train to Busan and also World War Z. So it was definitely awesome, and it was a more, I would say, aggressive encounter with the zombies, something that we didn't really get in the original show or Fear the Walking Dead. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we're really looking at runners here. They're the main ones that they're going to focus on. The walkers are just the walkers. They're not focusing on them quite as much. They're focusing on the variants, particularly the runners, way more. And that's obviously adding to the thrill and the intrigue. Then we get to a point where Isabel goes up to the main streets and sees the chaos. I absolutely loved everything that they did here with her first encounter with the walker that was there. I absolutely loved it. And in many ways, this particular scene reminded me a lot of what they did in the HBO adaptation of The Last of Us, with the runners attacking, chaos, explosions everywhere. I think that this was reminiscent of a lot of the things that we saw in the premiere episode of The Last of Us on HBO. But I absolutely loved how it came together. But with that said, I feel like there was a bit of missed opportunity here. I feel like they rushed through this quickly. I mean, it was great to see the action, the motorcycle crashing, the car hitting the walker, and all of that. But I feel like if they just added a bit more to it, if they had Isabel try to run away and encounter more zombies and have to kill her first zombie, and also making it feel more like this is a big threat, like more explosions, more military, just shooting people down and stuff like that, it would have added a bit more to it. I feel like we only hit the surface of what they could have done. Not saying that it was bad, I absolutely loved it, but I feel like it could have been a lot better. And I feel like this is where the Outbreak flashback in the Daryl Dixon spinoff suffers the most. It's giving us a more interactive, a more dynamic, and a more in-depth look at how France fell and that first encounter. And I feel like if they showed us a little bit of background as far as maybe the scientists that were involved and the military trying to evacuate everyone, it would have added a bit more to it. Obviously, when it comes to the scientists, that may not be the direction they really want to go, so you can't really fault them for that. But they could have given us more in terms of the military showing up and everything like that. I feel like when it comes to that aspect, Fear did a way better job. Even though they didn't do a lot, they gave us enough in Fear that made it better than the Outbreak flashbacks in the Daryl Dixon. But I absolutely also loved how they had Isabel looking back at her apartment one last time before she left, and also the next day looking at Paris basically falling because there's explosions everywhere and it's chaotic. So I liked how they ended it when it comes to seeing Paris fall, but I feel like if they just gave us a bit more here, it would have been fantastic. To answer the first question we had, was this the best Outbreak flashback that we've seen in the Walking Dead universe? I would say it comes close, but no. I feel like what they did on Fear the Walking Dead was slightly better than what they did in the Daryl Dixon. The only thing that separates this from that is the fact that we're in Paris. That's the only difference and the only intrigue and thrill added to this whole thing when we look at this from a grand scheme of things. But I'm definitely intrigued and interested to know your thoughts and opinions about this. What do you think of the Outbreak flashback in the Daryl Dixon? Do you think that it was some of the best Outbreak flashbacks that we've seen? Or do you think that they could have done just a little bit more to make it shine? And do you also agree that even though Fear the Walking Dead hasn't been great and the setup was shorter than many fans wanted, it still did a better job at setting up the initial outbreak than what we saw on the Daryl Dixon spinoff? So share that in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.